Ladies and gentlemen, it is currently December 3rd, 2009, and this is Day 9 Daily number 29. We'll be getting started in just one moment, as usual. Gonna wait for everything to sync up. I'd like to thank my very, very loyal 73 viewers who are in here 24 hours a day. Hey everybody, there we go. Live stream's doing something insane. For some reason, in my studio, I actually have a real viewer count, and it's bouncing between 0 and several hundred people. So I'm hoping that I have closer to the several hundred people actually watching instead of 0. But oh my god, I just made it back in time. I had to walk all the way here in the freezing cold. Oh my god, it was so cold outside. And I'm just wearing a t-shirt. I was not prepared. I don't have the exact numbers, but it felt like Eskimo balls dipped in liquid nitrogen, man. Ugh, geez, seriously, it felt like I was in outer space with air conditioning. The coldest ever. I mean, we're talking LA cold, 60 degrees. Unbelievable. So it's a good thing I'm alive. Good thing I didn't have to kill some sort of animal and hollow it out and climb inside like in Star Wars. But I'm able to come back today and to do a little bit of Zerg vs. Zerg action. Yesterday's casts were awesome. Yesterday's cast went really well. Because I didn't have a time constraint on when I had to stop, I actually got to spend a lot more time doing those viewer replays that went very crisply. With the slight exception of livestream crashing 5 times, so it's broken into 4 parts. One of the parts I just threw out. So those will be up right after this cast today, and we're going to be doing 2 Zerg vs. Zerg games from action. Because Zerg vs. Zerg is such a nice, short, succinct little thing-a-ring-a-roo, we're going to just be watching several of those at every point in time. And I guess by the same token, every time we watch a Terran vs. Terran, we should do it across 3 different Day 9 dailies, just to sort of balance the 4-hour games out. So I think there was one more thing I wanted to say. Oh yes, of course. I may have told some of you this yesterday, but it's just so funny that I need to start doing it all the time now. So it was a group presentation day in my transmedia storytelling class, and the idea in that class is to take some intellectual property, and this group did Alice in Wonderland, and talk about extensions of it in various media. So TV show, web show, comic books, and the fourth girl did a card game, a tradable card game, and as she quotes, based on Magic Gather, which was fantastic. I love playing Magic Gather, and she says, of course, everyone knows the rules of Magic Gather, and proceeded to present these little cards that she designed, and my favorite part was that she says, and in each of these, I included the number of hit points of each of the characters. This is Alice, and Alice has 30 hit points. And then just goes on to the next card, and she's like, and the plant monsters have 25 hit points. And then she pulls out the Mad Hatter, and the Mad Hatter has 50 hit points, as though that's the conclusion. And I'm used to RPGs, where I'm yeah, and what's the constitution of Alice, what's her hit percentage, magic defense? But no, each character gets exactly 1 statistics. That was pretty sweet. So I want to make sure that whenever I'm watching StarCraft, I point out that Zerglings have 35 hit points. Let's go ahead and jump right into the action. So first we're going to be watching action against Shine. I'm going to go ahead and broaden the screen a little bit so we can see it properly. Let's go ahead and shut this viewer count off, and I just want to briefly show. See, here's my viewer station. See, look, 124, 197, 126. Oh, holding steady, 126, 127. Oh no, maybe we do have 126 viewers in here. I wouldn't be surprised. But hopefully that'll start doing some more action in a little bit here. It's been going haywire the entire time. So we have our first game on Heartbreak Ridge. We have Action playing against Shine. Now, I don't think Shine is exactly the best player, but somehow he miraculously knocked out, what's his face? Who is that gentleman? Fantasy. Oh yeah, that number 5 ranked Kespa player. So Shine, well, actually, where are the starting positions? I'm just going to wait for this thing to go out a little bit. Okay, there we go. So we have Action spawning here at the left position. We have Shine from We Made Fox spawning here at the right position. The most important thing to note about Heartbreak Ridge is the fact that this map is very far apart. Because a lot of times what happens is, again, let's imagine that we have a starting position down here. And let's imagine the starting position has to walk like this to get up here. If we had Shine spawning down here, Shine could harass with Mutalisks up here, and then quickly return back here for defense. On Heartbreak Ridge, though, we have this half of the map is like Shines, and this half of the map is one player's, and this half of the map are the other players. So the instant we see Zerglings wandering this way, it forces us to draw our Mutalisks back. Also, in a lot of circumstances, we can get away with early expanding relatively safely, because we have this super, super thin choke that we can defend till this expansion's finished, and then win with a higher count of units. Whoa! I'm not so good at turning up the volume. So I think on this map, the absolute most standard thing in the universe to do would be to go 12 pool, 12 gas, 12 hatch at your expansion. That in my eyes is the most typical build. And notice these Overlord scout patterns. A lot of players tend to send it straight to the opponent's main, but it's actually quite a bit more beneficial if you can send it to this man right here. Alright, let's get this out of the screen. Whoa! Yeah, that's right, cameraman. Did you see that? The camera was like, quick, get this lady's forehead out of the way. Look at this obstruction that appears. Look at this. There she is. Oh, she's happy. Whoa! Get that out of the way. There we go. That was a crisis. His producer just grabbed his arm and just shoved it down. Oh, and we have another hidden fan. All of which are distracting from our ability to appropriately analyze the sweet-ass matchup of Zerg vs. Zerg. So we do see it looks like an overpool, I believe, is what this is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, that would be our overpool. We see them scouting their overlords in this direction, because if we scout in a straight line, we end up passing over the middle, which is not really a useful piece of the map to be on. But if we scout directly at this angle, we get to know if our opponent is early expanding, and we get to see whether or not any Zerglings are coming along this way. So I actually think it is quite a bit better to send the Overlord towards the expansion first. So, not the standard build going on from either player. Not the standard clothing going on from any of the commentators either. I never really show up to a party like this and be like, oh, I'm looking hot. Nada climbed into a time machine and warped back apparently 15 years. And there we see him being a little bit of a fanboy. So we have the overpool from gas here. I want to come back to action. This is a very, very easy build to do. Unbelievably easy. It is 9 gas, 11 pool. The whole point of this opening, let me back up just a little bit. The whole point of really any Zerg opening is to pick what your advantage is. You think about what are the imbalances here. And I don't mean like, oh, what makes this unfair. I mean like, I have more gas, my opponent has less gas. That is a gas imbalance. You think about what your imbalance is, and you just focus on that one thing, on that one advantage. This build that we see Action doing right now, Action is saying, I want a lot of Mutalisks, therefore I'm going to get an early gas, I'm going to get a pool so that I can stay alive from a 9 pool, I'm going to get a hatchery pretty quickly so I can get a lot of Mutalisks, I'm going to make a sunken colony so that I don't die, and the focus of everything is just going to be on Mutalisks and just on gas. Just a completely gas-centric, gas-focused build. We see the overpool going on from Friendly Neighborhood Shine, because it looks like he might be going for a relatively fast 1 hatch. But you can do quite a variety of things with Overpool and Overlord 9, Gas 9, Overlord 9, Pool 9, Gas 9, which is exactly what we see Shine doing here. You can start putting a lot of pressure on with these Zerglings, and you get to keep 3 in gas. So it's basically a little bit more of a gas-friendly 9 pool. But still, the focus of this build is I'm going to pound my opponent down with Zerglings, and hopefully that'll force him to take guys off gas, and then when my Spire gets done, I have a gas advantage. Both players seem to be going for gas advantage, for the most part, except Shine is going to be doing some harassment before his gas advantage. So yeah, look, he's going straight for the Spire right when his pool finishes. So let me actually just pause and do one more example of these advantages. The 9 pool, the 9 pool speed straight into the 1 hatch Spire, that would be saying something like, I want to have things coming out first be my advantage. So I'm going to get speed first to really harass you, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have more Lings first, and the fact that I get my Spire first. You don't really have the most gas, you don't really have the best economy. You're not going to be getting an expansion that much sooner, but if you keep getting things out first and first and first and first and first, then we kind of keep our opponent down. And a lot of you are aware of what I said, but I like to state it. This is Action, this is the hero of today. Yes, a champion among men. And there's that guy. most of you are aware of everything I said regarding the 9 pool, but I did want to make it super explicit. Because in that way, we get to see what the focus of our build is. I just want to briefly note, I'm going to occasionally unmute the chat just to make sure there's no severe lag going on, because Procaster's been really wonky in the past. That's such a cool word, wonky. So see, already we're starting to see the first part of Action's build not being aggressive with these Zerglings. He's going to be super passive, just position himself properly, and he's just going to defend against this overpool adequately. If this were a straight 9 pool, he should be getting a Sunken Colony. And for the record, all of you need to know that there is an extraordinary difference between a 9 pool and an overpool. A lot of people seem to think that, yeah, you know, an overpool is basically the same thing as a 9 pool, it's just a little bit more economically friendly. Not in this matchup. When games are 6-7 minutes long on average, any little decision you make like that is actually a huge decision. You should think of the difference between a 9 pool with speed and then an overpool as similar to the difference between going mech against Zerg versus going medic marine against Zerg. Very big difference. So there's a lot of drastic changes you need to make when you do these sorts of things. So Action is being really good at not overreacting. He does eventually need to make a Sunken Colony because the speed advantage of white is going to be coming out earlier than speed for red. Zergling speed is another one of those things that's huge deal in Zergling battles. So it looks like he made a handful of Zerglings, and then with this Overlord, he still sees more Zerglings being made and says, crap, I really do need to get that Sunken Colony up. And see, look, just a little bit of a better concave. Uh-oh, the Doom Zoom. But notice that we don't have speed yet for either player. Probably could have had speed from either player. Let's think of this from both opponents' point of view. So let's think about Action. Action saying, I'm not getting speed. I just want to play defensive because the focus of everything I'm doing is Mutalisks. And I don't want to be wasting gas on speed since the focus of my game is Mutalisks. We see Shine also trying to make the focus of his game Mutalisks, but he gets all these Zerglings hoping to screw up his opponent's economy. A lot of times when I'm doing this sort of overpool build, I will in fact get the Spire first. I'll get the layer first, and I'll start researching speed, and if I see my opponent's in this situation, a situation where Zergling speed isn't really going to help me out, because he's like one-hatching and building a Sunken Colony, I just cancel speed. So that way, I can help get a better boost to my gas, and I help get a better boost to my money, so maybe I can get, a second hatchery out a little bit earlier. Really nifty stuff to do. And that's why we see these Zerglings being sacked a little bit. He's going to be poking in maybe with a few more Zerglings, but he's not going to be overcommitting with anything necessarily. And getting the Spire out right on time. Look at this placement. Oh my god, look at this placement. That's so good. So notice that this Sunken Colony, actually every building is extremely well covered by the Sunken Colony. All of them like this. A lot of players sometimes, especially if they make a second hatch, they'll make a second hatch here, and they'll make the Sunken in between, but then we don't cover the top of our gas. This Sunken Colony covers everything. We tell drones to mine the gas, they loop around here. This Spire blocks off this path from the Sunk. This pool blocks off this path from the Sunk. You need to think a lot about blocking holes. So, for instance, Shine also has beautiful building placement. All these holes are clogged up, and he can build a Sunken Colony right here. He wouldn't build it here, because then this spawning pool isn't helping so much. He wouldn't even build it here, necessarily, because the spawning pool would help a little bit, but not nearly as much as if an entire side is covered by the Sunken Colony, because that's even less space for the Zerglings to attack it. And yes, he looked Shine going straight for more drones. He's not overcommitting to those Zerglings, because the point of canceling speed, if he made it, but more commonly it's just going to be not getting speed, is to get a little bit better of an economy than his opponent. I mean, he damaged his opponent's economy with those Zerglings early on, so he's just thinking, yeah, I'll just make a few drones, I'll just contain, and at this point neither of us really have speed, so I can just contain and continue to press on as normal. Pretty even game, but I think Action has a little bit of a gas advantage, because you'll notice, or actually you may not have noticed, when White's Zerglings, when Shine's Zerglings were doing a little bit of aggression right here, we saw all these drones moving around quite a bit, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute. We saw all these drones over here in Action's base, and his mineral line, we saw them move around a lot. The gas didn't move in the slightest, because the focus of this build is on gas. Also, I said the build at the start, 9 gas after Overlord, 11 pool. That gives a pretty good economic, setup. You don't have that few drones on minerals. If you do a 9 pool speed, you have very few minerals on, very few drones on minerals. So that's a really nice benefit about doing this build, is that you can get the second hatch out pretty damn early. Traditional uses of this build will not have this hatch pop out quite this late, but of course, White did a good job of harassing Red's Zerglings here. So one thing that's really important to note is that this placement, even though it might seem a little bit vulnerable, in a general Zerg vs. Zerg it might seem vulnerable, but in this specific one, no speed from White, my Spire's out right now. Sure, I'm going to take a few hits, but when my Mutalisks pop out, where are these Zerglings going to run? These are free Zerglings. That's one thing I'm just excited about as Red, is I'm thinking, oh yeah, free Zerglings. Scourge, I'm not going to do so well. Yeah, there's the Muta. Yeah, look at that, free Zerglings. The Zerglings are going to try to suicide, and all you need is very simple micro from Red. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no risk of losing that hatch to such few Mutalisks. Or to such few Zergling Lisks. I'm going to go ahead and unmute the chat briefly, just to make sure that there is no lag going on. So here's an... Oh, I love doing this. When you kill off one of your own things, you kill off one of your own Zerglings just to get your food count a little bit better. So yeah, like, really sort of fun situation to be in. Now, there's a timing push we're not going to see in this game, but in a lot of Zerg vs. Zergs, if both players get their Spires out at about the same time, but one player got a hatch way earlier, he can attack in a very small timing window because he has 6 to 8 larvae worth of air units versus 3 to 4 larvae worth of air units. So, in that timing window, even though our opponent has fewer, our opponent might have more gas than us on the whole, and we might have less gas, but because we had that little boost of larvae, we're able to be a little bit more aggressive. Oh, this guy! Let's zoom in on this guy. Alright, going back to the action. Look at this nice Overlord placement by Shine. We see these Overlords just moving back, but look, they're generally going for this line. Not very far away, because, again, I mean... You need to be careful not to have Overlords like here, because, you know, some Zerglings come this way, you send your Mutalisks here to kill them off, and then your opponent comes into the middle where your Overlord are, and kills those off. He's keeping his Overlords nice and safe right here to defend this place. Super, super, duper, duper good. So White was good. He tried to move in with some of those extra friendly neighborhood Mutalisks to do a little bit of damage. He managed to kill off some Overlords. So in this situation, this is kind of what I think of things. I'm thinking that White is feeling comfortable, right? He didn't lose any Overlords. White also knows he can't really attack Red at this this point in time, just because of when things ended up getting built with these hatcheries. Red, on the other hand, is thinking, oh crap, I need to stay alive right now, because I'm a little worried about being behind on Mutalisk count right now. So that's why we see all these Scourge popping out. But in all honesty, I think Red is in a little bit better of a situation because Red probably has more gas. So Red now, this is a little bit of an advanced concept, so let me see if I can say this correctly. This is always one of my favorite challenges, is when there's something that it makes sense in my head, but not in English. So trying to translate that into English. So let's take a look at the map. We're very far in terms of distances. How do I want to say that? Oh my goodness, that is a tough thing to say. We're far apart in terms of distance. I have a gas advantage as Red. The fewer the units that either of us have, the better. For instance, let's say I started mining my gas as Red, and I'm 200 gas ahead of my opponent. At every point in the game, I have 200 more gas. So, another way to put that is, I mined 200 gas when my opponent's extractor finished. In the early game, we'll have something like my 8 mutas versus your 6 mutas. And then later on, it's my 12 mutas versus your 10 mutas. Notice how this is getting closer to even. If we're really late in the game, it's my 60 mutas versus your 58 mutas. In other words, the smaller we can keep these unit counts, the better for our gas advantage. So what happens with Action is he has a gas advantage, but he lost some overlords. So when all these overlords pops out, he's going to make as much as he can and attack pretty early on. And he also wants to reinforce very quickly, so that's why we're seeing a predominance of Scourge in this attack, and why he's moving out about now. This is why he's pushing forward about now. He's kind of checking out, he's kind of moving forward, and we're going to see more Scourge getting added on. Not in this case for White, because White is thinking, I need to just keep my Mutalisk count high, play a little bit more defensively, and focus on getting that expansion up a little bit earlier. And again, this is all under the assumption that I am behind on gas as White. In this circumstance, this attack to me says something like, my opponent probably had his economy screwed up because I killed these overlords, so I'm going to attack about now before he can really get all those larvae to make units. Notice how much I'm talking about larvae in this matchup. So here's some attempts at micro by White, but he did take a pretty good number of Scourge hits. I'm not quite sure how many Mutalisks White lost. And I would rewind, but I've been pausing quite a bit this game, and we have yet one more game to focus on. It's just that Zerg vs. Zerg is such an unbelievably hard, tense matchup. So now we see some more economy being built up, so hey, maybe I can expand soon as White. These people, man, these people, look at them. They're the most confused viewers I've ever seen in my life. Let's see if we can get another sneak preview at them. It's always so fun to look at the audience members. Yeah, see, here's the drones. This is where I was like, oh, let's get a better economy. And then look at the... Are these guys Amish? It looks like they have never seen technology in their entire lives. These poor people. She's not even quite sure what to do with that balloon. It's not cotton candy, man. So yeah, we have the friendly neighborhood Mutalisks continuing to move around. A lot of drones got built for Red. Really good situation to be in Red's spot. He's slowly building up an economy, and in this circumstance, I have a gas advantage, so I can use my gas to expand safely. Everything is gas-centric with this build. So we see Red starting to kind of get on his feet. He's allowed to be aggressive. Not just because he probably has more Mutalisks, but also because he has that sunken colony in his base. This is what I call a counter-attack advantage. Because Zerg vs. Zerg is such an intense matchup, and because drones die so quickly, if you have defensive structures, it gives you the opportunity to move around and counterattack your opponent. And your defensive structures can actually kill off a very, very large amount of units. Pretty even game at this point. I think both players are going to be focusing on expanding, or if one of them is just like, oh yeah, I'm totally ahead in Mutalisk count, he can do these sorts of attacks. One thing that's really easy to do is to have your Scourge right-clicked on a Mutalisk. That's a good way to keep the Scourge just following the Mutalisks around. So we see a little bit of an earlier expansion coming down here for Action, because he's not focusing on making Zerglings to attack, he's just focusing on using his gas advantage of Mutalisks to defend, and then he's just going to build up some more drones. So, whoa! A little wiggle around action. Shine had a pretty good economy from the start of the game, so he's going to go ahead and be expanding about now. And this is always, I think, the most tense situation to be in, especially if you have inexperience in this matchup, because it feels so much like, man, I really need to not move because I don't even know if I have an advantage. Doing what Shine's doing is very, very smart. Just sort of poking around. Notice how he didn't walk here. He sort of snaked his way around carefully, and then he pokes up here, and he just got in a situation where he could pick off one drone. Just one drone safely. I mean, he moved down here with some Zerglings. He knows Mutalisks are down here. Going to go in here and get one drone. So here comes the spreading. Uh-oh, unfortunately, White pulled his Scourge back a little bit late and is now suddenly low on Scourge count. So that's a very fast way to lose in this matchup. when it's both players send their Scourge at each other's Mutapacks, but one player is a little slow when pulling his Scourge pack back. Yeah, see, look how late. Oh my god, look how fast this Scourge pack was pulled back by red, and how slow the Scourge pack was pulled back by white. See, look, okay, look at this. Both players are in a micro situation. This guy's trying to kill these. This guy's trying to kill these. Now watch. Red immediately whip around, and then white, man, that was super late for white. I'm quite shocked that white didn't lose all of those Scourge. And of course, another thing that happens whenever we're expanding is that we have to spend money to do it, but we have these larvae left over, and we've been building up gas. So that's why we have more Scourge being made when we expand. So we see white is doing a not good job of microing, which is unfortunate for him. It's really easy in Red's situation to go, oh my god, I can kill off my opponent's Mutalisks. Let me chase after those. But there's absolutely nothing bad about returning home to save your own expansion. Ideally, you wouldn't lose those Overlords quite in that way. But again, it's totally okay to be pulling back like action. Now, notice the little subtle things that are going on from Shine's point of view. What Shine is doing is Shine is just sending not a lot of Zerglings, just 4 to 6 Zerglings here. And anytime the mutas come down, we have more mutas up here doing attack sniping. That's a very, very common technique in Zerg vs. Zerg, but what I love about Shine's play is it's like 4 Zerglings, and that's it. No more than that. As a result, Shine can still get his expansion up. He's fine with that. And Shine's not looking to kill the front or to kill the back. He's looking to maybe kill a drone at the front or kill a drone at the back. This sort of tactic is very, very good if both of you are kind of keeping low on unit counts. Another good use of this tactic of Zerglings at the front, mutas at the back, is if I am doing some sort of one base, but I have 2 hatches in my one base. So I have a lot of units, right? And my opponent expanded early. So I'm thinking, ooh, man, he's starting to build up a gas advantage. He's going to beat me with Mutalisks. I can get 20 to 30 speed Zerglings and like 10 Mutalisks as a one-basing player. And I can just straight up attack the back and attack the front, and then in that way I actually will kill one or the other, because the Mutalisk can't be in both places at once. So that is another good use of this tactic. But I like what Shine is doing much, much more. See, look at this. Poking in, killing off 2 guys, heading home. Very, very good focus by Action to not overreact. He's not sending these Scourge wildly to take out these Mutalisks. He's just being very methodical in how he adjusts things. And as a result, this gas advantage for Action is slowly extending forward. And now it looks like Action is in a better spot to win. So here's Shine doing more of these same tactics. But I think what we might end up seeing at the end is what I like to call a no econ Zerg vs. Zerg. Where one player says, you know what? I have more mutas. Do whatever you want. Kill off my base. It's fine. Because I will eventually we'll both eventually have no drones, but I will have no drones and more mutas, and therefore I'll win. Yeah, see, look at this. A very standard no econ Zerg vs. Zerg. And I'm not saying that to be funny. That does sound like a joke, but whoopsie daisies, missed a drone. That does sound like a joke, the no drone Zerg vs. Zerg, but you should really think of it as a very standard technique in this matchup. It's very typical to get in this spot quite often, where basically, from Red's point of view, I've been focusing on a gas advantage all game long. I really want to get back to this Muta pack so I can make circles. Yet we've been focusing on this gas advantage all game long. He's been trying to harass us. He's been doing some damage, but he suddenly lost a pretty good amount of Mutalisks. And then you just go, sweet, and you go kill him. Yeah, see, look at this. No red units on that left side of the map. Very, 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 very good. And also, very, 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 very standard. This is a very typical spot to be in. And see, look at this. Goes for the Spire next. That's because at some point you want to return home. So while I'm here, I'm going to go kill off all your key tech structures. So you should think of this as a very sort of standard Zerg vs. Zerg. It's really fun to watch. But one thing I really want to point out is that that was not a very long game at all. But I stopped multiple times throughout the game to sort of explain what was be going on in either player's mind. And the reason I wanted to do that is to demonstrate how, even though it might feel really, really intense throughout the entire period, that just stuff's rushing all over the place and things are being microed and everyone's going, oh, and those two Amish people are still confused. Despite all that, if we stop and look at it, we can go, oh, I clearly see what's going on here. So let's watch the final match. I love this. So it demonstrates a lot of ability by our friendly neighborhood action player, and you know what? My throat really hurts, and I forgot to get my water. So you know what? While these people are just having their conversation, I will go get myself some ninja water. All right, hold on. All right, I gotta find my water bottle. Hold on one sec. All right, I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Alright, I think we're good. Alright, let's go ahead and get back to this game. Alright, fantastic. So we have a Zerg vs. Zerg. And again, I want everyone to notice how much more intense getting water is than Zerg vs. Zerg. We can analyze Zerg vs. Zerg, we can pause it. Water should really be the intense thing. We want to have a nice low heart rate when we're playing Zerg vs. Zerg. Overpool coming down here for Roro. Sorry, I forgot to mention that this is Roro playing here. And then we also have action going on here. Now, I briefly want to say the reason that I chose this game in particular to, or these two games from action, is because action played both of these in the same series. The first game we saw was Eastro vs. We Made game 1 or 2, I think. Pretty sure it was 1. And then this is Estro vs. We Made game 5. And what I love is how different action plays. It really shows that he has a lot of different strategies prepared in the Zerg vs. Zerg. What we're going to see here is what I call a tactic that in most matchups you incorporate tactics into your play, but because Zerg vs. Zerg is so short, a lot of times your strategy can be, I'm going to do this tactic. There's sort of a blurred line between, strategies and tactics. So what we see right here is an overpool from Roro and a 9 pool with speed from action. So I really want them to go back to Roro's base. Go back to Roro's base. Go back to Roro's base. Well, if they're not going to, I'm just going to go ahead and rewind back to here. Oh, excuse me. It was the 12 pool thing. I miscounted. Yeah, see, 12 pool. Roro's doing the standardest build ever. He's doing what I was actually saying is standard on Heartbreak Ridge, which is you go 12 pool, 12 gas, 12 hatch. And I want you to notice the way in which Roro attempts to defend this. So hopefully this lag is going to be okay. I'm just kind of double checking, so yeah, everything seems to be going okay-ishly. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and pause right now. It seems like there's just... No, everything seems to be going okay. Sorry, I just went ahead and muted it. There's a small lag, but sometimes the viewers get out of sync, as we will note. There's always a small percentage of viewers out of sync. And look, I have 143 viewers. And earlier on, this actually said over 300. So, boo! Oopsie daisies. This is the game we're watching. There we go. So, yeah. I want you to see the way in which Roro defends this, right? So he has his first Zerglings coming out. Everything seems to be going normal. Hold on, I am going to pause. Is there lag going on? Alright, there's not. Alright, sorry. People are giving me all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm going to mute it and assume it's never lagging ever again. So the idea of Roro's strategy right now is that Roro has his build designed to keep this expansion alive. When he scouts around and he doesn't see anything, he goes ahead and moves out to attack, and here's the tactic by Action. Action knows that he can stay alive from any early attack just by leaving some Zerglings behind, and he's going to be doing this. Now, let's watch Action's decision-making right here. First target, what is his first target? Zerglings. Zerglings are the first target. Since we see Action getting Zerglings first, so he has a Zergling count advantage, let's extend that advantage by killing off our opponent's Zerglings. That's the first thing he goes for. A lot of players would get overexcited, and look at this. So he's going to go up here and try to surround those Zerglings, not get into a position where he can't get a very good concave. I mean, even though it's 3 Zerglings, you still want the good concave. And then he's going to be focusing on the hatchery. And look, these Zerglings are focusing on the Zerglings. And I just thought that was very good decision-making by Action. Look, still going for Zerglings and killing the hatch. Now, a lot of times when players do this sort of tactic that Action did, what they'll do is they'll run right up the ramp and straight into their opponent's main. Because it's so tempting to just be like, oh my god, there's nothing here. Maybe I can kill off a bunch of drones. Not the best thing you want to do. It's actually kind of hard to kill drones if your opponent can move them around properly, even if you have 8 Zerglings. In this circumstance, though, if you just attack the front hatch, you're pretty much guaranteed to be doing it, to be killing it. Now notice, Action could have done this exact same thing without this little runaround tactic. What was the purpose of this little runaround tactic? It was not necessarily to do this, because this sort of thing probably would have happened anyways. Action probably would have sent 12 Zerglings in a big swarm at the front, and Roro would have had to deal with it. But what benefit does it get? It gets 2 benefits in my eyes. First of all, if Roro is moving out, which is what happened in this case, we can pick off 2 extra Zerglings, and therefore we can get a bigger Zergling advantage to accomplish what we would have wanted to accomplish anyways. That is, this tactic makes what we wanted to do... let me rephrase that a little bit. So, we have our strategy in mind, and this tactic slightly improves that strategy. It's not a drastic change. We're still just attacking a vulnerable first expansion. But it gets a little bit of extra edge from killing off, from isolating a few extra Zerglings. And the second thing I think it helps quite a bit with is that our opponent normally sends drones out early if he sees that he's facing a 9 pool. Those drones might be a little bit delayed. Why is this useful? Because it also helps us kill just a few more Zerglings. That's it. That's all that's going on. And that is such a minor thing to hear someone say. Yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is, yeah, go Action. You're killing off an extra 3 Zerglings or so. But remember, Zerg vs. Zerg, little differences cause incredibly huge changes. So, good job here by Action. And see now, he can throw 3 guys in the geyser. And clearly he has a gas advantage. He killed off his opponent's expansion. His opponent focused on taking an expansion early as opposed to taking more gas early. So right now, I would say that very clearly, where does the advantage lie? Not just in this Zergling count, but primarily in the gas. So apparently the stream is now lagging out completely. Uh-oh. Hopefully it's going to be okay. Is it doing okay right now? Is it freeing up? Everything seems to have been doing okay, but you know what? It seems like half the people are lagging and half the people are not lagging. So now everything seems to be good. Alright, fantastic. Sorry again to any of you who are watching this on demand. There's just this really obnoxious problem where Livestream just for some reason with all their changes with their interface and with their software, it seems to be kind of going bleh. So, sincerest apologies for all those pauses. But yeah, so the advantage that Action has right now is not just in a Zergling count, but now also in gas. So what I want to do, if I'm in Action's position, is think of how I can extend my gas advantage using my Zerglings. Easiest way to do it, I'm going to keep attacking you with Zerglings, which will force my opponent to keep making Zerglings, or to make defense, which will screw up my opponent's economy, therefore improving my gas advantage. See, look, here come the Zerglings. Primary focus of these Zerglings now is not my opponent's Zerglings. That's what it was earlier on, but now it's going to be on my opponent's economy. Yeah, so see, we're trying to pick stuff off. But we really want to get in a spot where we can... Yeah, look at that, look at that. Those drones just popped off gas. Fantastic. The exact thing we wanted to do, which is to extend our gas advantage, is right here before us. So see, look at that. That's so great. This is always a vulnerable spot in any race, is the gas line. The mineral line's a little harder to get to, but if you're harassing with Zerglings, the gas line is always a good spot to go to. So look, hitting these eggs on the outside, and then he's going to swing up here and try to... It looks like he's trying to work his way in there, but a lot of times you're just content as yellow to be getting that gas advantage. And here he just goes, oh, wait a minute, I can get a free Spire. And I mean, I don't think I need to explain the Spire advantage in Zerg vs. Zerg. That is, if I have a Spire and you don't, you know, I'm in good shape. So continuing to do this sort of aggression, I don't like this. This is the one criticism I really have of Action's play. You don't need to suicide anything. There's no reason to suicide units to kill the Spire. You could have continued bouncing around here with those Zerglings action, and you could have extended your gas advantage, and then you could have wandered those Zerglings home, and then the Mutalisks would have popped out and you would have won immediately. And the 1% of the time that your opponent does hold it off and does a counterattack, those Zerglings that you brought back safely will ensure you don't lose. Just a little bit of a safer option that I like quite a bit. And I mean, here's the most normal tactic in the world. I mean, I'm going to hide Zerglings in your base, and then I'm going to, continue to bring the noise. So, again, in this situation, I would have attacked the gas line with those Zerglings. I wouldn't have just gone straight up. I would have come up like this and then over, just to make sure my opponent is bringing guys out of gas. It seems very little. Most people just say, take the Zerglings and go for drones, but you really should be, take the Zerglings and go for the gas drone, or the mineral drone, or, and a lot of times, it's get the easiest to kill drone. In this case, I think the gas is clearly more important. Because look at the situation that Action's in now. Here's an example of why I dislike that decision to suicide for the Spire. Action, who was in complete and total control, and is still in complete and total control, has to manage this sort of defense with just Mutalisks. Wouldn't it have been great if he had 8 Zerglings at his ramp and didn't have to do this? And we're still going to win as Action, but 1% of the time we're going to make a mistake with our Mutalisks and we're going to lose. And that's why you bring those Zerglings back to stop that extra 1% of losses from happening. Doesn't matter what you attack with your Mutalisks now, you're going to be in good shape, but still, I'm going to be focusing on the gas drones. Look at that, going straight for the gas drones. Look at that angle. He was even coming in here. These were closer, but just does the little harassaringo up here at the gas drones. And again, at this point, nothing that you can really do is Roro. And see, look at how stupid this is. The fact that this clearly is going to cause Action to win, but you don't need to barely win like this as Action. You can win in a lot better circumstances. I mean, here's another case where it's pretty much fine to do the no econ Zerg vs. Zerg. You really don't need an economy anymore. You have the Mutalisk count that you want. And as a result, we have the good game, so Roro ends up losing, and I think that those were some really, really awesome Zerg vs. Zergs, because not only do we get to see the same player doing 2 different things, but we also get to see him doing it within the same period of time. So that really shows all sorts of things that can be going on. So there's apparently a lag spike that's going on. So everything seems to be going on okay now. I'm going to hope that everything's all right in the commentary on the on-demand. So hopefully everything comes out in the end. So let's see what happens. So Scrix asked the most reasonable question. How did Shine's expansion come out after Action's expansion in Game 1? Like you said, getting things... what was I saying? Sorry. Lost my train of thought, and I also lost Scrix's excellent question. Because I did a dumb thing. He posted his question in red to allow me to read it easier, and then I highlighted it, and which turns the text white, so then it disappeared again. So Scrick says, how did Shine's expansion come out after Actions in Game 1? Like you said, getting things first was his game plan, and Action even had to rebuild an Overlord. I think that I really think Shine should have gotten out his stuff first. You know what? I'm actually going to rewatch that. So let's actually go ahead and... whoopsie daisies, I dragged the wrong thing. Whoa! I dragged my viewer window instead of my chat window. So I'm going over to this main screen right now. So I see the harassment coming out here from Shine. So I'm zooming it ahead forward a little bit. So, you know, at this point... Yeah, you know what? If I'm white here, I don't see... I've killed off a lot of my opponent's Zerglings. I know he doesn't have a high Zergling count. I know he doesn't have Zergling speed. And expansion's going to be very, very safe. I think Shine should have taken... I'm doing things on the mini-map, but I'm actually on a 2D split. Yeah, I really think that Shine should have been expanding here. It's really safe. Our opponent doesn't really have any Zerglings, so I really would have preferred that. And once we hit this point in the game, I think, honestly, both players' economies were pretty even. Action had the better early economy, but then lost Overlords. Shine had the worse early economy, but then killed off Overlords. So yeah, it's it's a very standard sort of thing. Yep. Yeah, I think in these circumstances, what we're really seeing is that the expansion comes out a little bit, a little bit later, because of just some economic screw-ups early on. But I also think that Shine could have taken that expansion earlier, so I like that a little bit. Uh-oh. Here's the ever-famous question. I'm going to go ahead and mute chat so it stops flooding. Fantasy Monkey says, why are Hydras never built in Zerg vs. Zerg? I don't know. They really should be. Best thing in the universe. Logic says, what can you say about Jaedong's build, where he sends Zerglings to the corner of his nat so his enemy's overlords see 6 Lings instead of 10 or so? I don't actually know if that's Jaedong's build. The first person I saw use it, and also the only person I've seen use it a lot, is Calm on STX. Love Calm. He's so good. That is another thing that I call it's a nice little tactic to use. And what I love about it is that it can't hurt. I mean, if you send... I mean, there are very small circumstances where it can backfire. Here's a circumstance where it can backfire. Where my opponent gets, 16 Zerglings really fast, and I have 12 Zerglings. If I have 6 hidden at my natural and 6 at my ramp, it's not going to be, Uh-oh, are we getting massive lag spikes? Lag spikes? Man, about a 1 minute lag? Yeah, God, it's doing fine now, but that's annoying. So I'm gonna go ahead and not mute the chat. So guys, go ahead and stop typing in the chat. I'm gonna clear the chat. That way that'll hopefully I won't have to be muting it and unmuting and that sort of thing. So what I was saying is, let's say my opponent rushes for 16 Zerglings. If he rushes for 16 Zerglings and I have 12 Zerglings, I want those 12 Zerglings at the top of my ramp. If I have them split where I have 6 at the top of my ramp and 6 hidden in my natural, I'm going to lose. All the rest of the time, though, it's really helpful because our opponent will sometimes think that we're not powering, or sometimes think that we're powering, or that we're not making Zerglings. We'll think that we are going for fast tech, these sorts of things. And if you were planning an early attack anyways, that sort of tactic can potentially make that attack all the better. And that's what I love about that sort of hiding stuff. It's a tactic that incorporates very easily into your game plan if you have some sort of early attack going on. So I'm going to go ahead and just take these last few questions. So Poplar says, I'm a D+ Zerg player, and one of my major issues in Zerg vs. Zerg is knowing when it's safe to sneak in an extra drone or two. Ooh, you know what? Okay, so Poplar, that question really shows me that your head is in the right place. So first of all, you're in good shape, because that really is one of the biggest essences of Zerg vs. Zerg, and a lot of people tend to overlook that for a very long time. So I would say that it depends upon your game plan. So let's do the 11 or the 9 gas 11 pool thing that we saw Action do in game 1. The way to deal with that, if I'm the one doing that, is to probably make around 6 to 8 Zerglings and then get a sunken colony and keep making drones. And if I ever see my opponent continuing to make Zerglings, I'll probably need to make Zerglings myself anyways. That's, almost inevitably going to happen. But really, in that circumstance, what I'm saying is make some Zerglings and then focus on drones. That's my goal. And if my opponent continues to make Zerglings, I guess I'm just going to keep making Zerglings until my Mutalisks pop out. If I'm 9 pooling, and I have maybe, or like my opponent is early expanding, I really need to keep making Zerglings and just ripping him apart. Because not only are my Zerglings going to be what kill him, but also I know that I need to keep my opponent's economy down since I am getting my Spire first. So if I'm doing aggressive openings, I'm focusing a lot on Zerglings and getting a lot of units out, and actually quite a bit less on drones, maybe making 1 extra drone. If I'm an aggressive one-hatching player, if I have, 3 drones on gas and 6 drones on minerals, great. Or even 5 drones on minerals, great. Fine numbers for one hatch. No big deal. Not a problem whatsoever. I'm not even going to be focusing on making drones in that sort of circumstance. So the last one I think that would be a useful example is if I do the build that Roro did in this game, the very popular 12 pool, 12 gas, 12 hatchet expansion build. I'm going to be making a lot of Zerglings early on with speed, and the instant it seems like my opponent is really fucked Ling-wise, I'm going to be making a lot of drones and some Zerglings. What is that game? You know what? If you actually watch Zero against Effort from BlizzCon, which I recommend not only because it's a good example of this, but also because it's a replay, you can see Effort doing this. He focuses a lot on Zerglings early on, and then he starts doing a balance of Zerglings and drones. So I would definitely use that as a reference game. So, in short, if you're doing anything Muta-focused or Econ-focused, you try to get a way to live, and then you make drones as many as you can. If you're trying to be really aggressive, you try to get away with making as few drones as you can to keep pounding your opponent apart. So I like that question, and I have time for just one more. And this Darling's question is fantastic. So Darling says, when I'm behind on my Spire time, but I have a Ling advantage, should you just send Ling to the opponent's concave and try to win? That is that happens a lot. There's a few different circumstances where I am behind on Spire, but ahead on Zerglings. Here's the first circumstance. I have a Ling advantage, and my opponent has retreated back to his sunken colony. You can actually send a drone and build a sunken colony on his creep. This is not cheese. This is a tactic. This is standard, unbelievably strong. This happens tons and tons on, I almost said on Wikipedia. This happens tons on Colosseum, where, because it's hard to get a really good wall off early on, if I 9-pool you and I have a huge Ling advantage, but you, for some reason, were able to get your Spire early, so if you went over pool and got your layer right off the bat, I think, uh-oh, your Spire's ahead, but I can build a sunken colony on your creep, and my Ling advantage will help me in that way. There's really no need, though, to just attack to suicide to kill my opponent. Because if your opponent does have a Spire advantage, he has designed his play so that he does not die to mass Lings. So you should not sacrifice your Lings, so that way you have no advantage whatsoever, and he has an earlier Spire. So I would say poke in there. Try to break his concave if you can. If you're not good at judging this, practice with a friend. And do this. Say, let's say you're practicing with your best friend Bill, and you're like, Bill, put 12 Zerglings at the top of your ramp. And he says, okay. And you go, I have 16 Zerglings. I'm going to try to attack. Can you break 16 Zerglings on the bottom of a ramp versus 12 Zerglings at the top? Bill will help you find out. Then have Bill play you when Bill's on Colosseum, and you attack Bill's front with 16 Zerglings against his 12. And when you start, whenever you choose these numbers, you go, oh, Well, it's actually so much more clear now. All of a sudden, you're not going, it looks like I have maybe a little bit more than he does. You can go, that looks like 12 Zerglings for him, and I clearly have 16 right here. Great, I can break it. Or, great, I shouldn't try to break it. The last thing I do want to point out is that if you're behind on Spire, you might not be that behind. So let's say you're just like 100 hit points behind or 200 hit points behind, and you're far away on the map. What happens is that you're going to be just fine when the Mutalisks pop out. So Mutalisks pop out, your Mutas pop out, and he can't kill you with Mutalisks. But then you have all these Zerglings that you can use for tactics. So, for instance, if his economy's behind, then you can attack the front with a bunch of Zerglings, his Mutalisks come in that way, and then you hit the back of his base with Mutas and just pick off a drone or two, and then you're golden and you've almost won the game. Or you can do things like when his Mutas get to your base and you're trying to defend it and everything, you send Zerglings back to his base and it'll buy time for you and your expansion. To answer your question very succinctly, do not try to suicide to kill your opponent just because you're behind on Spire. Send all your Zerglings to kill your opponent because you look at his base and go, oh yeah, I can kill that, and then go kill him. So I think that was an unbelievably good Zerg vs. Zerg session. I'm very happy how that went, with the minor exception of some an unnamed streaming service that seemed to be failing on me quite a bit. So a lot of people are asking about the analysis that happened yesterday. There's always about a 24-hour lag time on when those things get posted. So, excuse me. So yeah, those were done at around 9:30 last night, and it's 8 right now, so it should be up within the hour. So I'll post them up, and I think that about wraps everything up. We have some exciting things in store for next week. Going to be going back to just the exclusive pro commentary, doing a lot of more pro matches because I'm so eager about this. And I think that's going to be about it. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody, and peace out. Cheers.